Tornado made its way out of Union County into western Kentucky and into southern parts of Indiana. Look at this video of that storm. Same tornado that came out of Union County into southern parts of Indiana, crossing the road right there in front of a trucker, narrowly or barely missing his rig. And tornadoes associated with tropical systems not as uncommon as you may think. Meteorologist Ben Beddoes gives us the lowdown.
Whenever we think of hurricanes, we think about strong winds, heavy rainfall, and storm surge. But did you know tornadoes can also be a key part of tropical systems? That's what we saw with Beryl. Tropical systems are essentially very powerful low-pressure systems and operate much like significant frontal systems over land. Tornadoes need wind shear to form and friction at the ground. This creates a rotating column of air. Just like any thunderstorm, hurricanes can form strong updrafts. Wall clouds can form as a rotating column of air starts to funnel downward. This happens typically on the northeast side of hurricanes, or what is also referred to as the right front quadrant. Let's take a look at Beryl's path once it hit land. Notice all the tornado reports on the right or east side of the storm. Fortunately, in central and eastern Kentucky, we were too far east from the center to cause a significant tornado outbreak. Areas west of us mainly got in on any tornado action. Areas around Shreveport, Louisiana got hit hard Monday. The National Weather Service office there issued 67 tornado warnings Monday. So when it comes to tropical systems or what's left of them, don't forget, tornadoes can be a key element even far inland. I'm meteorologist Ben Beddoes, WKYT.